Hello and welcome to i4i's latest industry webinar. Today's topic is overcoming common product monograph authoring issues. My name is Darren Lewis. I'm i4i's Manager of Client and Regulatory Services. And today, once again, my colleague and our resident product monograph expert, Amanpreet Kant, will be giving today's presentation. In this session, we'll be discussing product monograph authoring and controlled vocabulary common practices and how to better them in preparation for the mandatory XML PM submissions coming up. From the registrations today, I see we have many new guests, but also many returning attendees as well. Thank you for your interest. And for our new guests, let's go quickly over our standard WebEx housekeeping. During the webinar, all microphones should be muted except for the presenters. If you experience an echo, please double check that your mic is muted in the WebEx window. The microphone icon should be red and have a cross through it. If the echo persists and you're on your phone for your audio, mute all audio devices on your computer. At the end of today's presentation, time should allow for us to answer some of your questions. If you have a question at any point during the webinar, you can type it into the Q&A panel at the bottom of the WebEx window. To send a message in the Q&A, click the Q&A button. Make sure you select all co-hosts option from the Ask dropdown. Enter your question in the text area, and then you can press Enter. And if you don't see any of these options, you can click on the View menu and select Show Meeting Controls option. We'll, of course, do our best to answer as many questions as we can, but if we cannot answer your question during the session or we have too many, we'll contact you directly with a follow-up afterwards. Just before I turn things over to Aman for today's topic, I'd like to provide a quick overview of i4i for those of you who are just getting to know us. i4i is a Canadian company. We made our mark in pharmaceutical structured labeling, working closely with the FDA on the development of the original SPL, or Structured Product Monograph Labeling Implementation Guide, in 2004. At the start of structured product labeling, or SPL, requirements from the FDA, we adapted our patented XML encoding technology to suit it and introduced a standalone authoring tool, A4L Professional. A4L offers industry and in-house authoring tool that utilizes Microsoft Word to create, edit, validate, and publish compliant product labels in XML format quickly and easily. Since then, we've added on our enterprise version. This offers 21 CFR compliant document management, as well as management services for complex labeling processes, such as publishing to various jurisdictions, variant management for parallel submissions, and translations. This supports or can support labeling processes for over 100 jurisdictions globally in their various languages. Most recently, of course, we've been working closely with Health Canada on the XML PM initiative for product monographs. And in parallel, we are engaged with a broad range of other initiatives globally, including IDMP, FHIR or FHIR, and CMC-PQ, just to name a few. Along the way, we've also built an incredible regulatory team to support our customers using our software, and also on as an outsourced basis, offering XML creation and review services to support these standards. And now I'll pass things over to someone on that fantastic regulatory team, Amanpreet Kant. Aman, over to you.
Thank you, Darren, and hello, everyone. In today's presentation, we are going to show you the different areas in which you can improve your product monographs and also be ready for XML PM. First, we'll have a look at the complex task of migrating legacy product monographs into the latest template format dictated by Health Canada. Then we'll look at some of the authoring nuances you should keep in mind to future-proof your PMs for XML PM, including building tables, optimizing images, and managing versions in both official languages. Then we'll give you a peek into metadata used by XML PM and where to find it, and then the final step, publishing. And finally, as Darren mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. In this first section, we want to address one of the biggest challenges of moving your labeling from legacy unstructured product monographs into the latest product monograph format. And that's mapping to the new structure and using the new styles. There are a number of differences between the legacy and 2016 PM templates and the 2020 template, which conveniently is also the same template used for XML PM files. One of the biggest structural changes involves sections that have been moved and changed. So let's take a look at these. If you haven't had to update your product monographs for a while, your product monographs might still be using a legacy layout. If that's the case, you need to be aware that the content of several sections within your document need to be rearranged to comply with the new required section structures. As you can see in the table shown here, the order of sections has changed considerably. In some cases, information that was contained in its own discrete major section, such as summary product information and description, are now combined into the dosage forms, strengths, composition, and packaging section. Additionally, where summary product information used to be the first narrative section in the product monograph, its content is now contained within the sixth narrative section. This leads us to something else you need to be aware of, which is that the section headings in the 2020 and XML PMs are managed as controlled vocabularies and must not be modified. And this includes their numbering. Let's look at an example to demonstrate what this means. So the guidance indicates that if there are no serious drug interactions, Section 9.1 should be omitted. In this case, Section 9.2, Drug Interactions Overview, would remain as 9.2 even though it comes directly after Section 9. Additionally, if you want to change the heading of Section 9.3 from drug behavioral interactions to the more precise drug alcohol consumption interactions, this wouldn't be permitted. All section headings must have exactly the same numbering and heading text as specified by Health Canada. If your legacy document is in the 2016 layout, it's already quite close to the new structure. Most of your content can be transferred directly into an XML PM. However, as this table shows, there are some sections that are present in the 2016 template that have been removed from the 2020 master template and therefore also removed from the XML PM. Health Canada's 2020 master template provides a blueprint of how your narrative text should be formatted in a docx file. As the 2020 PM and XML PM have a shared structure, following the 2020 template and Health Canada's guidance document will go a long way towards being fully compliant. If you outsource your product monograph updates, you may not need to worry about handling these section changes yourself. For instance, as part of our outsourcing services at i4i, we handle the section mapping between your legacy PMs and the 2020 master template. But if you author in-house or are looking to augment your current approach, our A4L software has a feature that can streamline the conversion of 2016 product monographs into the 2020 product monograph or the XML PM format. Our product monograph templates contain a special conversion feature that automatically applies the necessary structure to your content from a regular Word document. Clicking a button initiates the conversion process, and in the background, A4L does all of the heavy lifting. So tables are something that all product monographs contain, but there are a few aspects to them that should be considered in order to smoothly transition into XML PMs when they become mandatory. So that's your nested tables and table notes. We'll start by looking at nested tables. Okay, so what is a nested table? Simply put, it is a table within a table. You could think of it as a smaller shelving unit or shelf divider placed within a larger shelving unit as demonstrated in this image. Here, the smaller pink shelving has been used to group something separately from others within a single shelf. Often, nested tables are used to format the content within a table to make it look a certain way. Microsoft Word allows you to create nested tables and it displays them fine. And in fact, you may not even realize a table is nested at all. If your Word or PDF formatted product monographs have had nested tables in them up to now, then you might wonder why they are a problem. The issue becomes most apparent when you move to XML PM. So XML PMs are published to the XML file format, and XML files rely on a style sheet to be displayed. XML PMs use Health Canada's style sheet, which does not allow nested tables. So if your product monograph has nested tables in it, the nested tables will not be displayed when viewed in a browser or in a final published XML PM. Fortunately, nested tables are largely unnecessary because table cells can be split and merged to create a grid within the table that looks and acts much the same as a nested table. So let's show you how to replace a nested table by adjusting the cells in the main table to maximize your document's compliance. So in this example, we'll focus on a nested table that's used to hold bulleted list items in 2 columns. To make the inner table part of the main table, we will need to reformat some cells. First, insert a new row in the main table, either above or below the nested table. And this new row is where the content of the nested table will go. Then split the new row into the number of columns of your nested table. So in this case, the nested table has 2 columns, one for each column of the bulleted list. Copy the content of the nested table into the cells of the new row. With the content now part of the main table, the nested table can be removed and all your content will be included and structured as it was before, but now it will be compliant with XML PM rules. And repeat this for any nested tables in your document. And because all the content is now in one table, so when you preview it in the style sheet, all the content is displayed. A table note is a piece of text that directly follows a table and it's referenced from within the table. It's the same idea as a document footnote, but it's specific to a table. To create a print suitable one in Word, you can add superscript numbers within the table for the reference markers and a numbered list after the table to hold the reference text. But for more interactive documents like PDFs or XML PMs displayed on the web, it's ideal to have an active link between the table note marker and the note text so the reader can immediately jump from within the table to the references at the end of the table. You can manually create table note references with active links to the table note text in regular Word, but it's a chore. You would need to create your table note list, add a unique bookmark to each item in it, then add your table note markers. Of course, you'd need to be sure that you use the marker that corresponds to the list item number of the table note. Then you'd probably want to make it superscript so it looks like a reference marker. And finally, you find out the name of the bookmark you want to link to and would link to it. So that's why they are rarely seen in Word documents. On the other hand, Aferel offers a built-in solution for table notes. Aferel inserts a list to hold the table note text and automatically applies bookmarks to each item in it. You then just need to add the reference links within your table. If you're authoring your product monograph as an XML PM, the table notes added in this way display directly under the table using the correct bulleted style. Images are necessary components in product monographs and easy enough to include, but there are some things to be aware of, including Health Canada's 2020 and XML PM image rules, optimal image sizing, and why image files are not embedded in your XML PM like they are in Word PMs. So what do Health Canada's latest rules say about images in the product monographs? So if an image does not contain language-specific text, the same image can be used in both the French and English product monographs. If it does contain language-specific text, then you must use an image with French text in the French PM and an image with English text in the English PM. The image file names cannot include accented characters. Spaces are also not allowed in file names, so replace any spaces between words with hyphens. Additionally, the name should be kept short. All images require alternative text for accessibility purposes, such as for screen readers for visually impaired. The image alternative text is not displayed on screen when viewed with the style sheet. Instead, it is read out loud by the accessibility application. This also means that the alternative text should be an actual description of the image. The style sheet will only render JPG or JPEG image files. It is strongly suggested that you create your image files as JPEG to begin with, or that you convert them into the JPEG format. As a side note, A4L has a built-in solution for this issue. So if your document happens to include a non-JPEG image when you publish it for submission, A4L flags this during its validation checks and automatically converts the file into a JPEG file that is saved along with the XML submission file. The style sheet will display each image with its original size and resolution. So for this last one, let's take a closer look at what this means. By default, a browser will display an image using the image's actual dimensions. When you insert an image into Word, Word scales down the image so it will display within the available width. It's important to point out that Word doesn't change the actual dimensions of the image. It just displays as though it has. To help illustrate this, imagine a car behind a wall with a window that is 1 meter wide. You would be unable to see an entire car through this window if the car was parked up close to the window. However, if the car were moved away from the window enough, the scale changes and the entire car can now be seen, even though the actual dimensions of the car have not changed. Similarly, when you insert an image of large dimensions into Word, the image's original size is not changed, but is scaled down until it can fully be displayed within the margins. For product monographs output to Word or PDF, this isn't an issue, as what you see is what you get. But for XML PM documents, what you see in Word is not what you see when viewed in a web browser. Therefore, to accommodate both Word-based product monographs and XML-based product monographs, it's best practice to insert images that are already appropriately sized. Oh, and there is another size to be aware of when including images in your product monograph. It's the file size. Health Canada has specified an individual JPEG must not have a file size larger than 2 megabytes. This is another reason to check that your images are a workable size. When you submit a product monograph in the 2020 PM format, you submit a Word document and don't need to think about the embedded image. The reader sees it the same way that you see it when you created your document. When you submit a product monograph in the XML PM format, it's a bit different. XML PM files are in the XML format, and unlike Word and PDF documents, images cannot be embedded into an XML file. Instead, the XML file contains references to the location of your JPEG files, and your JPEGs must be submitted along with the XML file. Health Canada's style sheet requires the location of image files to be in the same folder as the XML document. If you're using A4L, you don't need to manage this manually. When you publish your XML PM using A4L, our software creates a folder for you and saves your XML and all related JPEG images into that folder. In addition, A4L also creates a zip file of this folder and its contents that you can use for your own purposes. Product monographs must be submitted in both official languages in Canada, and each must use the standard text and control vocabularies that correspond with the label's language. We're going to show you how you can find this information. And we're also going to present some of the language features that we've built into A4L to help speed up and manage the process of authoring and submitting in French and English. Let's start off by looking at the standard text heading in 2020 PM and XML PM documents. In each of your language-specific documents, headings must use the Health Canada approved text. Submissions with non-compliant section headings will be rejected. Besides standard section headings, which Health Canada maintains as a control vocabulary list, it also maintains lists of controlled vocabulary terms for your product information, such as ingredients and characteristics, packaging details, and the product's regulatory information in the content of your product monograph. The compliant heading names and control vocabularies for other terms in both languages can be found on Health Canada's website, so you can ensure that all your controlled vocabulary terms are compliant. If you're doing this yourself in Word, it can be time-consuming and error-prone to manually change and verify each value in both languages, and this can slow down the submission and acceptance process when submitting your secondary language product monograph within a deadline. If you're using A4L, it contains 2020 product monograph and XML PM templates in which the standard heading text is automatically populated, and Health Canada aligned control vocabulary lists are embedded. You can author everything in one language, then change all the standard headings and control vocabulary with a button click. And when Health Canada makes changes to these lists, we make the same updates in our templates so you can stay in line with the required language-specific headings. When migrating your product monographs to the 2020 format, it's not a bad idea to also get them ready for XML PM. We're going to outline what information you need to have and what you need to do to move from a product monograph to the soon-to-be mandatory XML PM. Regardless of whether you outsource or use a software tool in-house, when moving your labels from Microsoft Word-based product monographs to XML PM, you'll need to collect your metadata to streamline the process of entering your product data and company information. Health Canada's control vocabularies are used for a lot of the XML PM metadata. And the benefits of requiring that only values from a predefined list are used is that it ensures that all XML PMs are consistent. And this consistency enables the automation of some of the approval process, which saves time and effort and reduces human error. If you were manually creating the XML document for your XML PM, you can meet these requirements by visiting the Health Canada Control Vocabulary web pages and copy the necessary values into the appropriate places in your XML file. However, if you use A4L, these controlled vocabulary terms are integrated into the software. When your product monograph is published as an XML for submission, A4L then embeds this metadata within the document. For instance, when iFry handles outsourcing, we provide a metadata collection form into which you fill the values of your product data elements and the related company information. When an XML PM is rendered in a browser with Health Canada's style sheet, the product data and company information is displayed as tables at the end of the document. This data is taken from the metadata held in the file. The metadata structure for this file is outlined in the XML PM technical guidance document, and the metadata values and rules are found in other guidance. For links to the latest guides, please feel free to reach out to us after the webinar. The metadata allows each product referenced in the product monograph to be captured, and for each product, you record the ingredient information, the route of administration, dosage form, physical characteristics, packaging details, and the product's regulatory information. Any metadata elements governed by a controlled vocabulary list must use one of the accepted values found on Health Canada's website. You also need to add metadata about the companies involved in the product, including the market authorization holder and, if applicable, the importer or distributor. The company names must be a valid one from the Health Canada's control vocabulary lists. The metadata structure is quite complex and isn't something most people would want to create manually. And here we'd like to show you how A4L's metadata dialogues work to make this process easy with our integrated lists that map directly to the Health Canada's controlled vocabularies. In A4L's company information dialog, where a controlled vocabulary term is required, such as the name of a market authorization holder or importer or distributor, you simply need to select it from the related drop-down. The items in these drop-downs are taken directly from the Health Canada control vocabulary lists. This ensures that your choice will be compliant and removes the possibility of typos. Similarly, A4L's product data elements dialog employs much the same structure as the product tables in a published XML file. Integrated controlled vocabulary lists are even more prevalent in this dialog. Health Canada's lists for dosage form, route of administration, scheduling symbol, and other product information can be selected from the related drop-down lists, as can ingredients, packaging, units of measure, and much more. By restricting the values in this drop-down list to only those approved by Health Canada, you can be sure that your label is in tight compliance regarding these controlled terms. Once your product monograph or XML PM is completed, you're going to want to be sure it's valid and looks as you expect in the style sheet. A4L has some built-in tools that help you review, validate, and ensure that your product monograph is compliant with the latest rules and formatting from Health Canada. These features include live previews from A4L as you author, on-demand validation reports for both your content and your metadata, and publishing to multiple different file outputs, both for review and submission. When using A4L, you can preview your label at any time while you author to see how the Health Canada style sheet will display it. Previewing like this allows you to see issues that are not immediately noticeable in Word. Let's look at 3 examples. First, the preview can help to identify incorrect formatting, such as when nested tables have been used. In these images, you can see the nested table and its content is displayed in Word, but is missing from the browser preview because nested tables are not allowed. Incorrect formatting like this is also caught by A4L's integrated validation, which we'll discuss shortly. Second, Previewing your label in the style sheet displays the true size of your images. Unlike Word, the style sheet uses the actual image's dimension to display the image in the browser. So it's a good practice to do a preview of all your images. Third, some Health Canada rule violations can be spotted when you preview your document. So in this example, it isn't immediately evident in Word that the heading is incorrect. However, in the preview, the word assessment is in lowercase as it is not part of the approved Health Canada heading text. This modified section heading violation isn't very easy to spot. Luckily, AFRL's integrated validation reporting will catch this error and alert you to it. So let's move on and look at AFRL's integrated validation. There isn't an online tool for validating 2020 PM or XML PM documents. So if you don't use software or outsourcing services for your product monographs, the only way to discover if your documents pass validation is to submit them. With AFRL, validation is integrated. You can test that your document is compliant with Health Canada's formatting and validation rules at any time during the authoring process. This validation capability alerts you to any potential problems before you submit, reducing delays caused by multiple submissions. AFRL's validation produces two reports, the readiness report and the validation report. If we take the formatting and validation issues that we mentioned when we were talking about previewing, we can see these validation reports in action. Here, the readiness report lists all the tests that it has performed. We can see that the formatting of the document is mostly ready for submission. However, it has flagged the nested tables as an error and indicated the section it is found in, so we can easily locate it and fix it in our document. When we run the validation report, the section heading rule violation is caught. The report indicates both where and what needs to be fixed before you can publish your product monograph for submission. After validation comes the final step, publishing of your product monographs. For XML PM, Health Canada requires that you submit two Word documents, one with annotations and one without, as well as an XML file for your primary language submission and any JPEG images you used. You'll need to submit the same files for your secondary language submission as well. A benefit of using AFRL is that you don't need to manage two versions of each file. The Word product monograph and the XML PM are the same file, and they're ready to publish into both Word PM and XML PM documents. And AFRL manages the conversion of the file from Word to XML PM format and also manages the image creation and file packaging. So that's all from me. I'll turn things back to Darren for our Q&A session.
Thank you, Aman. We're ready to move on to our Q&A portion of our session. If you haven't already sent in your questions, then please feel free to do so now using the WebEx Q&A panel. Also, if you're watching the recording of this presentation and you want to send us a question, please contact our i4i support team at support@i4i.com. We'll take a moment or two now to pause and collate any questions or for you to enter in your questions, and we'll come right back to you. Okay, thanks everyone. That seems to be all the questions that we've had come in for now. If you do have any additional questions, you can email us at support@i4i.com. Thank you all very much for attending. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.